Sir Keir Starmer will launch his 6 first steps he says he will take if he wins the general election. And we can have a look at these 6 points. We've printed them out. So, number 1, deliver economic stability. That's a life's work, isn't it? Number 2, cut NHS waiting times. Launch a new border command. Set up Great British Energy. Crack down on antisocial behaviour. And recruit 6,500 new teachers. So there they all are. The thing is, when you put the list like that, it reminded us of something. We're thinking, what does this remind? And we remember this. Do you remember this Ed Stone, as it was called? Ed Miliband created this, what was essentially a huge tombstone. It was actually stone. And they chiselled these promises. Things like controls on immigration isn't really a promise. And it went so badly, Conservative Central Office tweeted Labour to say we couldn't pay for this stuff. And they then removed the stone and had it destroyed privately. Is he going down the same track with this, do you think, Kevin?
I think the comparison he wants is with Tony Blair's 1997 pledge card. There were 5 pledges then. He wants to be Tony Starmer or Keir Blair. I think that's the comparison.
OK, but it does end up, doesn't it? I'm not being critical, but when you look at it, you just think, well, it's either just too big to do, like, for example...
Cut NHS waiting.
Yeah, or it's motherhood and apple pie. Which do you think? Is it too bland or too ambitious?
It's certainly not too ambitious because there's nothing there that's very specific. I mean, the very end
stability.
the very end one is actually specific, but the rest aren't. Crack down on antisocial behaviour. Well, who's going to oppose that? I mean, have we actually got a party that doesn't want to crack down?
But
on
crack down
antisocial
successfully
behaviour?
is what he's promising.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't said that though.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, seriously, I'd never take Starmer with anything other than a pinch of salt, because just about every policy that he's ever announced, not quite every, but just about every, he then reverses.
Well, the big one he did, the green one.
Oh, but not just the green one. Charitable status for private schools, student tuition fees, 2-child limit in benefit. I could go on and on and on. In fact, I did in my column yesterday in the Express.
So, that's why you've got all the facts there. Back in January 2023, Mr. Sunak outlined his 5 priorities so we can compare them. He said we'll halve inflation, grow the economy, make sure our national debt is falling, NHS waiting lists will fall, and we will pass new laws to stop small boats. He's been judged pretty harshly on that, hasn't he, Kevin?
Right.
Well, of the 5, he's only met 1, and that's inflation. The others, he hasn't. So
Also, inflation wasn't him.
No, well, if he didn't take blame, if he didn't take the blame for it going up, how can he take the credit for it coming down? Is the argument. But it has actually come down.
And we're in a better economy now.
But the 4 out of 5, yeah. But the whole idea of these 6 areas is, what, after extensive polling, conversations, focus grouping, they think those 6 areas are where people are at. Now, they can back them up with information, facts, policies on how you would actually achieve it. I mean, I'd prefer it to be much more radical than that, but...
Well, go on, what would you do?
Yeah, what would you do, Kev?
I'd like housing to be in there, for a start.
1 million new homes.
1.5 million, 300,000 a year, which actually is the government's target, but it's never got anywhere near meeting it.
Yes.
I would like a better offer on a real living wage, not the minimum wage. I would also like job rights to be in there. Now, better employment protection.
They have promised that.
Yeah, but it's not on. It's not made.
What about reinstating?
Because
the big policy they had, which they just suddenly dropped, was this thing of massive amounts of money to go to green policies. In fact, I can't even remember.
Billion,
28 billion.
Yeah.
What survived from that is Great British Energy, which would be a publicly owned, renewable, green, secure energy company. It would cost money to start up, but you see that now the future is going to be, and we get so much electricity, for instance, from wind and solar. Now that is the future. That's what survived from that.
I mean, I hate to say it, but what the young need is a massive house price crash. So why doesn't he promise that?
Well, nobody's going to promise a crash and imagine that they're going to get elected on the back.
Well, a lot of young people...
But there are other things that the young need. For example, Reform is the only party saying that we would remove interest on student debt. Now, we haven't gone, as Keir Starmer tried to do, and as the Liberals have frequently tried to do, and say, we'll abolish tuition fees. Rot. But we will abolish the interest.
Why is that then? Who's going to pay that? money back.
And it's costed.
Bus
If you look
drivers.
at our contract with the people, it's all costed out.
It's all costed.
Yes.
It was rather laughed
don't
out, the costings.
Don't sound so surprised. It's all costed.
Okay. Christopher's in Kent. Hello, Christopher.
Oh, good morning, everybody.
Hello. What do you think about the Starmer? It's not on a great big tombstone like Ed Miliband's was, but what do you think of it?
I mean, they're all very well, but unfortunately, I'm not over keen on Starmer becoming Prime Minister because I think there'll be a lot of social unrest that will occur. I think a lot of pressure groups will feel emboldened by him being a Prime Minister because I think they'll find him, think they'll be able to influence him, such as the unions, those people who are still campaigning to remain in the EU or would like to go back, and other pressure groups that I think that they'll feel emboldened.
It's a good point. Why
unrest on the street?
We've got some figures this week about the UK stock exchange, and the money is just flooding out, going to New York, but also Frankfurt. Kevin, why doesn't he say, and number 7 is we're going to rejoin the EU? Let's mention that at the end.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to fight an old battle is the reason why. Because he was very much in favour of staying in. He campaigned hard
Second
for
referendum, he wanted.
Yeah, he's now said no return to the single market, no return to the customs union, no return of free movement.
But what if we realise or we decide it's bad for us economically?
It's not bad for us economically.
You'll disagree on that.
Just assuming it is, I'll do it this way, which I think it is, and it's a £100 billion hit on the economy, 4% off Office for Budget Responsibility. It's the elephant in the room. And it's the same with the Liberal Democrats, the same with, which there's a National Party campaign for it.
I think the Lib Dems do say they're going to rejoin, don't they?
No, but not in any...
Because it isn't practical, Jeremy.
Yeah,
it isn't practical.
Just do it.
Rejoining.
You win an election, you do it.
Can you listen, please?
Yes.
Rejoining isn't just a question of saying, well, we'll just go back in. You've got to actually apply. We'd probably end up with the euro. It is very, very complex. And that is why a lot of people who were very pro-staying in have now reluctantly, including Keir Starmer, accepted it's not a good idea.
Well, he's done it in part for electoral terms. Yeah. But look, Anne and her supporters inflicted terrible national self-harm. Very, very expensive.
We're now the 4th largest exporter.
But pulled out, of course, we had the rebate, which you may not get if you go back in. They may not want us.
No,
they may not want us
join
anymore.
the euro to get in, but you might. Well, the younger generation might decide to do it. I don't know. Michael in Dover, what do you think? Is there anything missing from his list? What should number 7 be?
He's just vacuous in general terms. Yeah. I mean, he's quoting about migrants coming across the channel, and he's going to set up this quango to tackle them with MI6. And we've already had a journalist tackle one of the key people traffickers.
Oh, the Scorpion.
You don't need MI6, yes. And the point... Oh, I've lost my track.
Well, yeah, so you think basically journalists can do it?
Well, there needs to be a fundamental rethink on how you're going to tackle it from the other direction.
I think the thing that...
we've obviously have an agreement with those in the EU to register the migrants in the EU and process them there. It stops the people traffickers because there's no need for them.
Well, we left the EU. We left the EU. Would you rejoin the EU?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely not. And Starmer would bring us back towards going into the EU because he would be going for the Schengen arrangement, which is a step in that direction. And we got then mass people coming into the EU unchecked.
Right.
It's hard.
Go on, Kevin.
Michael, it's hard to know where to start with everything you say. We were never in the Schengen agreement. In fact, with free movement, when we were in the European Union, we had net migration a lot lower than it is now, as a record 750,000 in 1 year. But of course, when he says set up, launch a new border command, there's a lot of thinking behind that. It may not work. There's no easy answer to stop the boat. So that is, I wish all politicians would just be honest and say there is no easy answer.
If the country's in such a mess as you say it is, Kevin, why does everyone want to come here?
Well done.
But no, because they...
Well, no, I don't. I literally don't understand.
Yeah, but there are family relatives English language is a big pull.
So why so many
We've been there. We have
why so
we
many
have a very
interpreters?
deregulated labour market, so it's
Yeah.
easier to get jobs. It's a backhanded compliment. People want to come here, and they're coming from countries that they left: Iran, Iraq, Syria, which are a lot worse.
Okay, let's pause. Thank you, Michael. Thanks to our first calls. We'll take some more after the break. Is this list over here, is that going to win in the election? Is that enough? Before the break, we asked which iconic film was released in the US on this day in 1986. We gave you Top Gun, Breakfast Club, and Ferris Bueller. It is actually Top Gun. May the 16th, 1986. So wait, that means it's now nearly 40 years old?
Yeah, 38.
Don't say you haven't seen it, Anne.
I absolutely promise you I haven't seen any of those three. That
You don't remember? You take my breath away.
Oh, you must have danced to that.
Come
Anne.
on, Anne.
No, seriously, I do not.
Okay, it's a good movie, Anne. You've got a lot of movies backed up. You're going to have to watch it.
No, I am not going to watch Top Gun.
Later, we'll be asking if eco-protesters are human rights heroes. A Just Stop Oil protester has been compared to the suffragettes and Rosa Parks by her barrister. Is it fair? Now, more calls on whether the list over here is enough. Fundamentally, let's just have another look and remind ourselves, OK? Because this is what Mr Starmer, Sir Keir, has come out with. Economic stability, NHS waiting times to be cut, border command, Great British Energy Company, cracking down on antisocial behaviour. And then the very last one, the sixth one, is that's the more specific. Actually, that's the one where there's an actual fact. 6,500 new teachers. I don't know. Let's go to Andy in the Wirral. Andy, what do you think?
Hi, morning.
Morning.
Personally, on a slight change to the debate, I'd like to see Anne as Prime Minister.
Oh,
Well, we've had calls for that before, Anne, and you've resisted.
well, I'm a bit ancient now.
Come on, you could knock heads together.
Well, I probably would.
I think you would.
And enjoy it.
Andy, what?
Beginning with you and Kevin.
Yeah. We'd be. Oh, he's gone. Andy's
no.
gone.
Still here.
Oh, you're still
Yeah,
there.
he's
Sorry,
there.
someone said
Yeah.
you'd gone, Andy. Well, tell us why
You
you'd
have
like
the bottle
Anne.
to interrupt Dan.
No. Tell us why you'd like Ann Widdecombe to be Prime Minister.
To be honest, she's just a very old school lady, and she's got a lot of bottle. And every time I've seen her on this television programme, she talks nothing but sense. I think if you had Starmer on the television there right now, wouldn't have the bottle and would just be all over him.
Can you have a Prime Minister who hasn't seen Top Gun? That's
I don't like Top Gun myself, I must admit.
No. All right, Andy, thank you very much indeed. This is once every show we do with Anne, somebody rings up and says that. It's almost like a tradition. Raymond in North Yorkshire, hi.
Hello.
Is that list enough?
He doesn't need that list. All he's got to do, he's got to have two things. We promise we won't double your mortgage and we won't double your rent payment. You shove in the third then, let us swim in the sea.
So we
Bingo.
won't double your mortgage. We won't. So basically, we're not going to be Liz Truss, which should be enough
Correct.
to get elected. Yeah.
And we'll let you swim in the sea.
And a little bit of we're talking later on about sewage. Actually, yeah, it's dreadful that, isn't it? You've got sewage near you.
It's everywhere. Yorkshire waters are the worst, I think.
Yeah. Well, is it, so it's almost as if they just need to walk into number 10 then.
Correct.
But isn't that dangerous,
Correct.
Raymond? Because you don't then get them properly tested on the way in.
We'll be able to live. We'll be able to afford things.
All your hopes are.
Can't afford anything. You've got to pay your rent and that's it. You've got no left.
The trouble is, people are going to have high hopes, Kevin, aren't they? And in the end, we are in an economy where there's no free cash at all.
But, Raymond will have no doubt been hit by the cost of living crisis. He's no doubt experiencing the decline of public services. He's mentioned water. There's the NHS too. Education, unfortunately, is going backwards. You've got more potholes than ever, including on motorways. The criminal justice system is going to pot. And in many ways, elections aren't won by oppositions. They're lost by governments. And they become a referendum on the government rather than a contest between the two parties. I think Keir Starmer knows he's got to up Labour's game, improve the offer, and they are a bit vague. There's no doubt. There's only one really with figures, the 6,500 new teachers. That's going to be funded by VAT on private school fees.
Yeah, we didn't mention the VAT. Well, why didn't you say we'll put VAT on private school fees? Why isn't that one of them?
Because in a way, no one will really want to vote for that but you will want to vote for 6,500 new teachers. Although I will point out there's about 30,000 schools across the UK, so 6.5, divvy them up, that means you'll get one new teacher for 1 day per week.
And I would be interested to hear if it's net, because we had that sleight of hand under Tony Blair when he announced vast numbers of new doctors, and then it transpired that that actually included all those who were then in medical school. And so I would like to hear that this was a net.
Yeah, sometimes they refer to staff, which might mean teaching assistants. So that could just be language being loose. I do think it is 6,500 new teachers, but I'd like it clarified.
Those now in training.
I believe so, Anne, but I'm not a member of the Labour Party, not a spokesperson for them.
Yeah, OK. Raymond, thank you. Thomas in Glasgow, what do you think? Is this enough to win Starmer the election?
I definitely don't think it's enough. Every government or any party has been saying the exact same things from like the late 90s. They've been trying to sort the country, and if not, the Tories can't do it, Labour can't do it.
SNP?
It's definitely... SNP can't do it. They're even worse, mate. I'm not going to lie. The SNP have ruined Scotland worse than the Tories have ruined the UK.
I don't know. It's obviously that the SNP are now hitting the skids for the first time since 2014, since the referendum. So I know what's going on there, but yeah.
Since the referendum, they've been hitting the skids. But NHS waiting lists aren't going to be cut. How long have they been saying that for? There's more people coming into the country. So how are they going to be able to cut waiting lists for the NHS when more and more people are coming into the country requiring that help?
Thomas, I will say the last Labour government did cut the NHS and waiting lists went to a record low. Patient satisfaction was a record high. Behind that pledge, cut NHS waiting list, is a plan to have 2 million extra appointments. So they do have... Why they haven't put that as the pledge, 2 million extra NHS appointments, rather than cut waiting lists.
Where are these appointments going to be conjured up from? That's what I'd like to know, and that's a serious question.
No, the serious question is they're basically saying because it takes so long to train medical staff, it'll be people working overtime. Now, at the same time, Labour say, well, the NHS staff are exhausted. That's why they're leaving. So if you're going to get exhausted staff to do overtime and pay them for overtime, I think there's an issue around there. If you're going to ask how it's going to be funded, I can't remember whether it's all...
No, I just want to know where these
school fees money, the windfall tax or the non-dom...
I want to know where the appointment's coming from. If it can't be done through overtime because everybody's exhausted anyway, and claim they're doing matters
don't you bring in... It's like that TV show New Tricks. You get everyone who's retired as a doctor and you say, right, read up your encyclopedia, you're back in on Monday.
Yeah, if you do that...
Well, he hasn't said he's doing that.
It takes a while to train them up. In COVID, there was a drive during COVID.
Yeah.
But, if your medical certificate has lapsed,
but
you're
they're
not
good.
fully trained.
That generation are good. They've seen a lot of patients, Amanda's in Lancashire. What do you think? Is it enough to win in the election, Amanda?
Well, what's not actually on the list, which is essential, are getting rid of 0-hour contracts and getting rid of fire and rehire.
So have you had experience of that yourself?
Well, my son years ago was on a 0-hour contract, and the only hours at times they would offer is 4, and you weren't allowed to get another job without permission off that company.
So they could force you not to work and not allow you to work anywhere else? That's crazy.
Amanda, both those 0 hours contracts and ending fire and rehire are in the New Deal for working people, which didn't make the cut. I agree. I'd have put it on. Now, T&Cs apply to what they're going to do about that. There's been some accusations of backsliding on earlier commitments to get rid of it completely. But there are proposals, and I don't want to sound like a Labour Party spokesperson, but there are proposals to address that.
You sound just like it.
I'm just trying to explain factually. I'm doing it factually.
He knows what they're up to, which is different. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for all your calls. After the break,